One.
Okay, so welcome everyone to this Cambridge Online Experience Conference. As you know, my name is Robert Martinez, and I'm really excited to be here today, and I'm very thankful for this opportunity to share what I'm already doing in the classroom with my students with you. So let's just get started. I would like you to let me know very quickly in the chat box where exactly in Bulgaria or where you are right now. I've been to Sofia a couple of times. So I'm really happy to be able to speak to you today. Okay, very good, Sophia. Very quickly. Um, Karzali, okay. We have some people from outside Bulgaria as well. That's great. Okay, wonderful. Dobrik. Okay. Some of the names I don't know how to pronounce correctly, so I apologize for that, but that's really nice. Great, great. That's wonderful. And also, if you can tell me, how are you feeling right now? Just one adjective, the adjective that would make you, which would say how you're feeling right now. Um, Great. Katya, Albina, excellent. Oh my goodness, the names are just going up very quickly. So that's fantastic. Thank you. Okay, good, good. So we're in the right mood. So let's get started. I'm going to start the conference the way I would start any other workshop or my lesson. So the title for my session is New to Online Teaching. The idea is to give you some useful tips and tools for engaging in successful online lessons. Okay, all of the tips are very practical. Is things I've been doing for the last 2 months in my classroom, both with students and with teachers, because I'm also a teacher trainer. Right. So I'm going to start by sharing with you my learning outcomes. So hopefully, um, um, you know, this is something that I do with my lessons all the time, with my students all the time. It's very important that we all know where we're going. So by the end of this presentation, you will have thought about and reflected on what teaching is about, especially important in these difficult times. Okay, you will have thought about the role of technology and what the role technology plays in online teaching, and you will have seen my top 3 tools for online teaching. All right, so let's get started. Basically, a few weeks ago, or maybe a couple of months ago, we were all in the classroom. I think right before COVID-19. In the chat box, please let me know very quickly, how long have you been teaching online? Has it been 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months? Excellent. Okay. Since 15th of March. Perfect. Excellent. Just like us here. I'm based in the north of Spain, and it's been also excellent 2 months. Wonderful. So you can relate 16th, April 1st. Okay, so some people less than that, so that's wonderful. 2 months, most people 2 months. Excellent. Thank you so much. So as I was saying, we were in the classroom, we were teaching our lessons as usual, planning our lessons, telling our students what our aims and learning outcomes for the lessons were, establishing rapport, building rapport, communicating with them, consistently applying classroom rules and routines. And then all of a sudden, we were COVID-19 appeared, and we were catapulted into online teaching, and we all had to go very quickly and acquire new online skills, right? So this is just to say that it is very important to remember that regardless of teaching online, uh, we need to remember that teaching and the teaching that we do is still about people. So we still need to make sure that although it's a new medium and that we are behind a window, a screen, and that the students are on the other side, we're still there for them. We're still people. We need to be ourselves, and we need to relax and continue to do what we were doing before. A lot of people tell me, and a lot of teachers tell me, for example, here when we do the webinars or when we do workshops online, oh, but I need to learn so many things. I need to use so many web tools. And I tell them, no, we need to keep being ourselves. We need to smile a lot, because obviously now in a window, we have them on the other side. We're not 100% sure how big they are seeing us, if it is speaker view or gallery view. So that's the first tip I'm going to give you. Make sure that your students at important stages, like when you are setting up an activity or giving instructions, make sure that they are on speaker view so that they can see us quite big in the middle, and they can still benefit from all those paralinguistic features like our articulation. If we are giving instructions, say like you have 2 minutes, please do exercise number 3, and we can continue to do exactly the same thing that we were doing in the classroom, but bearing in mind that they are behind a screen. So basically, we're still talking about the same basic principles, right? Now, there are different contexts, and I chose these 2 pictures, and I would like you to use the chat box to tell me what you think these 2 contexts could be for us right now, or for most of us right now. I'm going to help you with the first one. So the first one would be synchronous, and that means that we are teaching our lessons just exactly as we did before, face-to-face, online. So if before you had lessons on Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 1 o'clock, then you're still having those lessons at the same time, but you're having them online right now. So that's synchronous, happening at the same time. The second one, in this case, could be everyone. Okay, good. Katrina, Carol, very good. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. Shania, that's great. Yes, absolutely. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so let's see. Asynchronous. So I'm sharing this because I know that some teachers here where I am, they have their lessons, but they're not at the same time. They only prepare materials, share them with the students send them back, and then they meet maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks. So these are the 2 main contexts, and also it could be blended, like a mixture of the 2. Now, this is just to say that the same basic principles for teaching, for face-to-face teaching apply to online learning. And that is, continue to be yourself, continue to smile a lot. I think is very important, especially now that they are on the other side of the screen, especially if they are younger learners, that they see us, that we want to be there, that we're still enthusiastic about being there with them during the lesson. That we still want to build rapport, that we have our routines are still there. This is something that is very, very important, because those routines, especially in lockdown, in isolation, help students maintain that sense of sanity, and that everything is okay, and that they have that sense of routine, and that they're still attending school. Now, in the chat box, can you tell me the age ranges or the levels that you teach, so that I get an idea of what your contexts are? Okay, teens, 14 to 16. Okay, 3 to 8. Okay, teens. Okay, 11 to 13, 7 through 12. Okay, 2 to 7, wonderful. The whole range, B2 level as well. So the age range and also the levels, excellent. Thank you so much. That's okay. Good, good, good. So right now I'm teaching teens. I have a group of 12 to 14-year-olds, and 3 weeks ago, up until 3 weeks ago, I was teaching also younger learners, and I have teachers, so adults. So still very important to be, as I said before, to be trying to engage them online, to be yourselves, to be there and look the part. That's also very important with the students. Now, looking at these pictures, technology, right? We are now teaching online, and some of you may feel a little bit apprehensive about the fact that, okay, I need to learn how to use a specific platform. There are lots of different platforms. It's not just using the computer, but delivering your lessons online. In the chat box, can you tell me what platforms are you using? Is it Zoom? Is it Blackboard Ultra? Is it Adobe Connect? Is it Teams? Is it Google Meet? Okay. Excellent. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. Zoom, Teams, Microsoft Teams, Google Classroom, Skype. Absolutely. Going very quickly. Exam.net. Okay. Viber, Messenger, Hangouts, Big Blue Button. Wonderful. So regardless of the platform, we're basically looking that we need to remember that we need to make informed decisions. So it's not about the technology, it's about delivering the same lessons we were delivering before, planning those lessons, having a clear idea of what the lesson looks like, what the task looks like, and thinking about how am I going to make the same exercise, how am I going to make them do the same exercise in such a way that they're going to be interacting with me. How can I check that they're giving me the right information? Okay, so we're going to look at some ideas for that. Something I do, for example, this is tip number 2. Some ideas that some of the things that I do with them is I use the chat box a lot to make sure to ask questions, but I ask them to send me private messages, not to use the chat box publicly, but to send me private messages. Why do you think is that in the chat box? Why do you think I ask my students or people participating with me to send me a private message rather than publicly in the chat box? Okay, because of interaction. Okay, very good. The shy students feel less overwhelmed. Absolutely, can lower anxiety. Katerina, thank you very much. Very good. They can support, absolutely, yes. Feel more comfortable, yes. And above all, because if you think about it, if I ask them to give me the answer to an exercise or a very short answer in the chat box, and they do it publicly, as a teacher, I won't be able to really see who's got it right and who's got it wrong and who's copying from the others. So it's something useful. I realize that is useful to see if they do it individually, because then I can see who got it right, who got it wrong, not necessarily, and then based on that information, then I can adjust and give feedback in such a way that nobody's put on the spot. So this is just to remember that pedagogy should come first. We should forget about the stress of trying to think, oh, I really need to bring in different tools and do different things because otherwise they're not going to like it. No, they already know you. They already know who you are, what we do. And it's more important to have a lesson that is sound, built on sound pedagogy and using the features you have on that platform than having bells and whistles that don't really amount to much. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be using other websites or bells and whistles. So all I'm saying is, if this is new and you're feeling a little bit apprehensive about it and it's normal, then don't worry. Continue to plan your lessons and explore the different features your platform offers first. Then get to know that, familiarize yourself with that platform before you bring in the big guns. Cousin in 2005, this is a quote that I really like, says, technologies work dynamically with pedagogies, not for them. So this is to say that I believe that technologies can really help my pedagogical approach. However, planning my lesson and my learning outcomes and what I'm going to do looking at my materials comes first. Is only when I start looking at how the different parts of the lesson work that I can think, okay, well, I could use this tool or I could use this feature, just as I said about using the chat box. Now, pedagogy and technology, they work together. I know that sometimes, especially if you're not very comfortable with technology or with computers or with websites, or I know that these are stressful times because you feel a little bit like, oh my goodness, I need to learn so much. However, my piece of advice for you today and that I give to my teachers here is, don't worry. Don't let that overwhelm you. Keep it simple. Do what you already do well. Establish rapport is more important. Look enthusiastic. Believe in your students. Use those little features first. That's what's going to work more than having 3, 4, 5 different sites on a lesson. Now, look at this picture, and in the chat box, tell me, what does it make you think of? What does it make you think of? I kind of like hinted at that just before. Yes, absolutely. Sevda, wonderful. Katina, yes. Albina, excellent. Yes. Mariana, absolutely. Yes. Yes. Liliana, absolutely. Galia, absolutely. Yolanda. Yes, the idea with this picture, I really like using pictures a lot because you know that a visual is worth 1,000 words. And in class and in my presentations, I try to use a lot of visuals because you may be aware of the fact that if the other person knows what I mean, if they can see what I mean, even if they don't know it in their L1, but they know they got the idea in their mind of what that represents, then when I introduce the words in English or the concept in English, it's going to be a lot easier for them to be able to see that. It's called bridging. We bridge that concept. And this picture is just to represent how many teachers are feeling right now. It's like far too much, lots of training right, left, and center. We need to learn how to use this tool. We need to learn how to assess the students. We need to use so many tools, and at the same time we need to continue teaching. So this is to say that even if you're feeling like that, don't worry. Try and remember that we can be our worst enemies or our best friends. So I tend to tell myself, my mantra is, whenever I'm feeling a little bit stressed, my mantra is, everything is going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay. I can do this. And then take a step back and keep things simple. Now, sharepocalypse is a word that was coined by Nova Spivak in 2011 because that's how or you may be feeling right now. Is like, it's far too much information, as you said, in the chat box. And so the answer is in our hands. I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to continue to work with my materials, with my students. I'm going to ensure that the personal side is not going away. I'm not going to let them see me stressed out because of the technology. I'm going to enjoy my lessons. If you are happy and you enjoy your lessons, that's going to convey, that's going to transpire, and it's going to reach them on the other side of the screen. So now, look at these two pictures, and remember, less is definitely more. So now I'm going to share with you the next part of the webinar. But before we do, I want you to write in the chat box, what do these pictures make you think of? I'm going to be doing this all the way through to keep you engaged, so you can use that with students as well. And at the same time, to make you think about why did I choose these pictures? It's like a rebus. I have the meaning hidden in the pictures. Okay, different tactics, different tools. Very good. Make a choice. Aims and tools, teamwork, critical thinking. Very good. Yes, lots of very nice ideas coming through. Okay, we're not robots. Excellent. Easier to connect, technology, digital and other tools. Absolutely. So now I'm going to share with you my top 3 digital tools. Okay, so digital, I chose the first picture because of the digital side, and then tools, and you were right. Absolutely. Now, let's look at my top 3 digital tools. Now, when I was preparing the webinar, I was thinking, okay, my top 5, my top 3. No, my message to you is keep it simple. And so with that in mind, I'm going to share with you 3 tools that are only 3 to try and keep it simple, but also 3 tools that are free, that are accessible to anyone with a Gmail account. You probably know already what I mean, and that are easy to use and share and access and have access to. So that's those are the reasons behind it, to try and keep it simple. Now, I've chosen these 3 digital tools, and I haven't told you which ones yet, on purpose, because when thinking of which were my top tools, there were certain things that I thought about. And is that they are very useful to be used either synchronously or asynchronously. So you can use them in the classroom or outside the classroom. There's no difference. You can use them for both inside and outside the online classroom, because you can use them in different ways, and they allow for different levels of interaction. Now, this is something very important and a very important concept that I want to leave with you. The levels of interaction, in the sense that it should always be us first, at least at the beginning, modeling the tool, modeling how to use it, exposing the students to it, regardless of the tool. That's why I haven't mentioned the 3 tools before, because these concepts apply to all of them. We should be the ones modeling, especially for lower levels. And levels of interaction, the interaction should be first teacher to students, then students to students, then maybe students to class in a communication or communicative activity, and then only at the end, students to technology when they have been exposed to the tool, to what it can offer, and then when they are familiar with how it works. The next one is because they're excellent for skills development. These 3 tools are really, really useful for skills development: speaking, reading, writing, listening. It depends on how you use them, and I will show you some examples. And also, they're great for collaboration and communication. However, I'm only listing collaboration and communication, but they're fantastic for the 4 C's of education. So I'm giving you 2 C's of education here, the popular C's of education. So collaboration and communication. What are the other 2 in the chat box? Share them with me. What do you think are the other 2 C's of education? Excellent. Very good. Yes, yes. Creativity. Very good. That's one of the others. And the third one? There are different versions, but the ones that are excellent, Cremena, very, very good. Yes. There are other versions, but the most popular ones, excellent. Elena, very good. Tanya, excellent. Thank you so much. Gloria, very good. So we have communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. So when I chose these top 3 tools, I made sure that these tools had these that they met these conditions. I was thinking of how I had been using them in class and whether they met the conditions, and I thought, yes, these are going to be the ones that I want to share. Now, in the chat box, what do you think I want you to do right now? Looking at those 2 icons. Looking at those 2 icons. What do you think? Very good. Yes, stop and think. An image is worth 1,000 words. So before we move on, it's very important that we stop for a second and we think, right? We think about themselves, and we think about what we're doing, because what you're doing is fine. You don't need to start thinking about, I need to incorporate so many tools, I need to use so many things. Keep it simple. Okay, stop and think. Thank you, Galia. Absolutely, yes. Reflecting. Now, stop for a second and think about this. In my opinion and in my experience, regardless of the tools, there's something even more important when we want to create lessons that are engaging for our students, not only face-to-face, but online, and especially more so right now online. What do you think those 2 icons represent? Okay, excellent. Key is organization. Find the proper one. Very good. Key, main aims. Very good. We're very close. That's very good. Katrina, key to content. Find the key. Keynote, main points. Absolutely, a key to success. Yes, I would say that the key is task design. So you may be thinking, yes, but I thought this webinar was going to be about online. Yes, well, if your task is clear, whatever you do online is going to reflect that, because the students will be able to do it. And the key to task design is to have clear outcomes. For task design and for lesson planning, you have a very clear objective and achievable aims. Mariana, very good. Yes. And you need to know the students. Well, more than the students, I would say first, as a teacher, I want to know who's doing what they're doing, where they're doing it, and I mean at home or online, when and how long. Now, in the chat box, please let me know, how long are your lessons? Are they half an hour, 50 minutes, 1.5 hours, 2 hours? Okay, 30 to 60, 80 minutes, 30, 40, 60, 40. Excellent. 60, okay, wonderful, 60 minutes. 20 minutes for primary, absolutely. 60 minutes, 45 minutes. A very, very good range, very compact range. Oops, up to 100, up to 2 hours. Okay. The shortest one, 60 minutes. Fantastic. Very compact. I deliver another webinar yesterday morning with people in Australia, and they had lessons of up to 4 hours online. Obviously, they had little breaks, but I was thinking, wow, that must be really, really hard. Here, where I am in the north of Spain, we are also delivering, like you, pretty much with the younger ones. We have 40 to 45 minutes. Then they go up to 55 minutes, and then maximum 1 hour and 25 minutes. Only very special courses would have more than 1.5 hours. 20 minutes for the very young learners. I agree, Bozena, absolutely. So now, having that in mind, let's look at an example. I'm going to give you an example of a task I did with my students so that you can see in practice how this works, and then it makes sense. It's going to be super practical and things that I have tried out. So very important to remember. So when you're designing a task, this is something I do all the time. I've been teaching for 25 years. I'm also a teacher trainer, and I love my job. I love teaching and also training and sharing with others. And I still plan my lessons. I mean, I don't plan full-blown Delta Delta lessons every lesson, because obviously it wouldn't be realistic, but I still plan my lessons and make sure that I have, especially now online, that I have very clear outcomes, that I can see how things work. So look at this example. By the end of this task, you will have spoken or written about your favorite sports and its rules. Let me just close one of these panels that is covering my information about your favorite sports and its rules. This is a lesson I delivered 3 weeks ago with a group of 12-year-olds, key students, Cambridge Key, so A2 level. Now, who in pairs tell your partner about your favorite sport. Please pay attention to the skill that they use first and how and what skill they use last. What? Think about the rules of your favorite sport. Where? Speaking in class, writing and research outside class. When? Speaking at revision stage of models lesson, writing at controlled practice stage of the lesson, and then offline. And then how long? Speaking 5 minutes in breakout rooms. Okay, so now this is what I was doing, the process I was going through when I looked at the book, and I was like, I like the activity. It's not a bad activity, but I think I know my learners better, and I really definitely need something different, and I need to approach it in a different way. So I put this together, and you will probably agree with me that very often the materials, they're good, but knowing our students, we always need to tweak them a little bit, because we know that something there is not going to work for all of them. So now let's move on and let's do something. Again, with me, I'm going to be asking you lots of questions. What does that picture make you think of? Okay, yes, an idea. Well done. Todorka, Galina, Shania, excellent. Sevda, Upka, wonderful. Neda, yes. Ilian, very good. And what about this one? This is to introduce the next concept. And it is that whenever you are planning your learning outcomes and your task design, you should be, this is to say that your learning outcomes should be this way. Any ideas of the two? Okay, too much information, brainstorming, awareness, generation of ideas. I'm going to give you a hint. Usually when you talk about objectives or aims or learning outcomes, they say, they should be, and there's an acronym. I'm going to give you a tip. There's an acronym. Any ideas? Let's see. Very good, Sevda. Okay, they should be smart. So now we're going to look at how we can make that task example that I showed you smart. Now, in the chat box, what does SMART stand for? Okay, good. Very good. Yes, specific. Let's see. I'm going to be revealing them as you write them on in the chat box. Yes, very good. Excellent. Yes. Measurable. Uh, very good. What about R? Let's see what people are saying. Very okay. Okay. Yes, that's right. And the last one, T. Very good. The next one, the last one, TT. They should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and very good, time bound. So now let's look at how this fits the task that I gave you so that you have an idea of how I did it for a very real specific task. So specific, I know that I want them to speak and write about sports and rules. It has to be specific. I need to know as a teacher. If very often I know, because it's happened to me as well, I'm a teacher as well, that sometimes we have a great idea, but if we don't think it through, when you're doing it, you go like, I should have done, it's not clear enough. So it has to be specific. So speak right about sports and rules. It has to be measurable. So I can measure exactly the success, because I can see who did it, what they did, where they did it, when they did it, how long it took, and I can see an identifiable process. They're achievable because the task comes at the right stage in the process. They can actually do it. So I didn't, if you remember, the first thing I asked the students was to think about their favorite sport, not sports in general, because especially for young learners, but it applies to any human being, you're more likely to talk about things that you can relate to. So this is super important. They're more likely to speak about something they know and like than some weird, strange sport on the page, right? Not that that is wrong, because that's going to enlarge their vocabulary. However, we should start with things that are achievable and then scaffold them in such a way that then they become a little bit more challenging. Realistic. So why is it realistic? Because they need to speak first about their favorite sports and rules. So they're going to do that. Then later on in the lesson, in the process, they're going to have to write about their favorite sports and rules. And then that lesson incorporates or focuses on modals, right? Time bound. I know that part of the lesson, part of that is going to be synchronous, and part of that is going to be asynchronous. For example, the researching of one specific sport that they like, where they go and find out about the rules. They use those models to write about those rules, and then the following lesson, then they come back and then they present that to all the students, to their mates. Okay. Now, how are you feeling right now? Before we move on, we're going to start now. I'm going to start showing you my 3 tools. That was to show you examples. Okay, so how are you feeling? I want to see if you are okay. Okay, good. Can I go on? You tell me. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to show you things that I do with the students. Now, this one, my first tool is Google Docs, and it is for teaching and learning. Now, you may be thinking, okay, everybody knows that. Okay, I'm just going to share my experience with it. I use Google Docs a lot. You can see this a screenshot of a CP task. A course that I was teaching a few months ago. And even though we were in the classroom, I was using it as asynchronously, where they write their tasks there, but it's not just creating the task. Because remember, very often what happens with homework, they give it to us, we mark it, we give it back, and we never hear of it again, right? So the idea is that we create a dialogue, we create a circle, this really helps with formative assessment, because we create a dialogue and we're able to see where the students are going. As you can see on the right, you can see my comments, her comments, my comments, her comments, creating a dialogue. So this is for teaching and learning. It's really useful for synchronous and asynchronous, and it doesn't finish there. Now, remember when I mentioned interaction? Now, this is very important. Initially, at the beginning of the course, I introduced it, and it was for the first few months, it was only between me and each student individually. After a while, when we established very good rapport, everyone was confident in everything, how they used it, how they interact, and how we do things, then I proposed the whole class to share their writings with everyone and to start using peer feedback, peer assessment for feedback. So you create something that is called feed forward rather than feedback. You look at it, you make your comments, you go and work on it, you look at it again, a different person, you make more comments, you go and work on that again. So that loop creates a feed forward loop that is very beneficial. There is a very, very good I read recently a very good article about finding a balance between summative and formative assessment. And these online tools are very useful because usually with feedback, it's just that correction, give it back, goodbye, and comes in one way, out the other way. But with this, you can create a recurring dialogue with the students. Now, this is an example for teaching and learning. Now, I have an example of how to use Google Docs for our CPD. Now, this is a Google Doc that I created with a collection of Google Slides teaching presentations that I have created. There are 19 there so far. I love creating materials. And with that link, you will be able to access them, okay? So I want to share those with you. You can download them, make a copy, adapt them, use them. The only thing I ask for is that you give credit, right? So that they were created by Robert Martinez. Don't worry about the link because Katie will share a PDF of the slides and you will be able to access those. Now, these are, why did I create, or why am I in the process of creating them? Because I continue to add more and more links to those presentations there. Because my teachers here, my job, I'm a director of studies and I'm also a teacher trainer and an online trainer. As many of you, we do different things. And so my teachers usually say, oh, you know, my students are having having problems with, I don't know, for example, look at the present simple and adversal frequency. So I create those materials to try and see if they can help them. They can use them in class, outside class. The only thing that I would like you to bear in mind is that I don't like to create materials that I use or that I talk about in class, because then the students are going to be there bored. I try with all these presentations, there's an element built into them so that the students are able to also add their comments. They can study them at home. You can use them for revision in class. Some of my teachers have used them for either to either present their lesson or as revision or at the end of the lesson. And we also share them with the students. This has received very good feedback from parents because they can use them to revise for tests or at home. So I'm sharing that with you. And it's just an example of Google Slides used for CPD, for our own CPD, okay? Now, let's move on. The second tool that I really like and I'm a fan of is Google Slides because it's free. Now, why is it important? Because I'm a teacher like you, and if we had to pay for every wonderful website that we subscribe to, I mean, we wouldn't have enough money to live on. So I like everything that is free. I'm sorry if that sounds cheap. So I know that now in this time that there's, of crisis, lots of websites are offering free services during the emergency. And I really appreciate that. I really do. However, I was thinking, okay, what can I do before I subscribe? Because after the crisis, I'm going to have to pay. So I don't want to get used to it and then not be able to afford it. Not that I don't want to, but I probably won't be able to afford it. So I have tried to stick to what I know that is free and accessible to everyone. Okay. So this is an example of one of those Google Slides that you will have access to in this, just to give you an idea of how I do it, okay? So for example, present simple, look at the first task. In pairs, talk about your favorite food. How do they make it? This was a lesson on the present simple passive, as you can see, and then it builds every step. Very important. I always ask myself, how much am I talking? How much are they talking? What can I do to shut up? What can I do so that they are involved in giving me an answer? And even in online lessons like this, then you can always constantly ask them for help through the chat box, through if you have access to breakout rooms, through breakout rooms. If you have participants, I ask my students, if you are on page 6, give me a tick. And then they go to the participants, and this helps me see who is listening, who's not, or maybe who may be a little bit switched off and that I need to change gear. Okay, so this is just an example. Here, this is for teaching and learning, but as well. So you can see the different tasks are, I make sure that is not lecturing, is not just blah, 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 blah. We want to make sure that they are doing something very, very often. Okay. Then is preparation for then watching the video. This is another example for a younger class that I was covering for the present simple. Again, for revision, what does your dad do? Making sure that it is something they can relate to, because very often the books are they're not wrong and they're not bad, but sometimes, as I said before, our students, we can see immediately, oh, well, they're not going to be able to relate to this. So it's important that we change it a little bit. In this case, I wrote my name because that class knows me. I'm always with them. They know when I'm at school. They know what I do because we talk about the different things. We live here in the same small town, so they see me. Okay, so I try to make sure that there's an element that is relevant to them. Also, very important, you can see all those pictures were taken from those pictures were taken from, let me just give you the name because it's important to give credit, and I add them. Just one second, I have it written here. Yes, just one second. So all the pictures from Ideas of Tenses by Richard Munz, you will see them at the end of the presentation anyway. They are included there. And then I take them from that book and adapt them so that students can use lots of color. Okay. Now that was Google Slides. That was for teaching and learning. Now, for our CPD, it's very important that we also think about our own professional development. And this is an example of a Google slide. How is it different? Tell me in the chat box. Can you notice any differences between this Google slide and the previous one? Look, I'm going to give you a clue. What can you see in the difference? What's different here? Okay. Oh, almost there. This is lava. Almost there. Yes. Okay. Color. Yes. Okay, Milena. Yes. Now, the difference is that you can see here, this is a typical portrait Google slide, while here, this is A4. Now, I use this. This is an example of a booklet. I like using portfolios for formative assessment with teachers or with my students. And this is an example. I create a Google slide. I share it with my teachers. This was for a group of teachers where they create that. I'm also a moderator, online moderator for the consultancy. And so for that course, I created a portfolio where the candidates, the teachers, were creating their tasks and their answers. I created like that, changed the shape, which you can do, and then you can download it as a PDF, and it looks like a little booklet. Now, this works wonders with younger learners and with teens because they curate it over a period of time, and that they can show their parents, and they love it. They feel a sense of achievement and a sense that they're doing something. Bosena, wonderful. This is another example of CPD. So this is one presentation that I prepare for my teachers, and it's just to show you that is not just for the students, but also for us, and that you can share them with your colleagues as well, so you can learn from one another. Okay, time is ticking. There's one more, and the last one, the third one, my third top tool, Google Forms. How are you feeling right now? Are you still with me? In the chat box. Okay, good. Can I go on? Wonderful. Okay. So Google Forms. Why do I like Google Forms? Thank you so much. You're a wonderful bunch. Thank you so much. Now, Google Forms. Why do I like it? Because as a teacher, you know that we need to do a lot of marking, mark, correct, lots of corrections and things like that. So I like Google Forms because you can use them for self-grading. Okay. They can, if the way you structure it, we're going to see a few examples in a minute. You will see that they can be set so that they self-grade. You can get a report, so it generates a report. You can get results, and they are recyclable. Now, there's a caveat here. I know because I discovered some of my students told me, "Oh, Robert, but you know that the quiz you gave us, we can find the answer very easily." And I was like, "Really? How?" Then I went onto YouTube, and it's true. Students can cheat very easily. However, I went back to my students and I said, "Okay, well, I don't care if you cheat because this quiz is for formative assessment purposes." What does that mean? It means that I'm going to look at what you did and I'm going to keep that information close to my heart. And in a week or two, we're going to do it again to see how much you remember. In a week or two, we're going to do it again. And then before the final test, we're going to do it again. And I'm going to compare and see how much you're doing, how much you're remembering, and things like that. So if you cheat, you're going to cheat yourselves, not me, because it's not a high stake exam. So in that sense, the drawback is that if someone knows how to go and look at the code, then they're going to get the answer. However, I think it's a matter of managing expectations with your students. Once they know that you're doing it because you do truly want to know what they're learning, where the gaps are, so that you can help them, then they are more, once they understand that you trust them, that you build that atmosphere of trust, then it really helps. Now, I'm going to show you some examples. For example, when you go to Google Forms, maybe you do it already, and if you do, please bear with me, okay? Just for those of you who are not familiar, when you go to Google Forms, you need to go to your Google Drive, then New, and then you get some examples, and then you choose Google Forms. You can create quizzes. I love creating quizzes because of what I can do and what they do for me and for my students. Now, you go to quizzes, you click on that little wheel there for the settings, make sure that you choose the quizzes tab, turn the form into a quiz, and you have options immediately after submission. I'll tell you why. I do immediately after submission because I have in mind formative assessment. So when I'm building the quiz, I want them to see feedback immediately because research shows that if you do a test and 3, 4, 5 days later you get feedback, you don't even remember what the test was about. So it's not very successful, not very effective. So I like to do immediate after submission so that they can see whether they got it right or wrong. Also, I want them to be able to see the missed questions, the correct answers, and the point values. I give them points. I want them to see the correct answers because I build in the answers. So if they get it wrong, they can go and see, okay, that was it. When they do it again, hopefully through exposure and repetition, they will be able to retain more. Don't forget to save, to click on save. This is just an example for CPD, just two examples. This is what it looks like. For example, the benefits of learning technologies. Learning technologies can help teachers make work lighter in many ways. In this case, it's an example with only 2 multiple choice questions, but you have different ones. Now, something to bear in mind is that discrete item questions are easier to mark automatically. And discrete item means that they're either a true or false or a yes, no, or a multiple choice. I prefer multiple choice rather than true or false because there's a 50% chance that they are guessing. So very important to remember. Then when they submit it, for example, the link is there. This is another example for CPD. With my teachers, we did a lot of work on classroom management, analyzing mini clinics, analyzing problems they were having in the classroom. So I also looked at the literature on classroom management. I put together a quiz and I shared it with them. Okay. So We're almost done. What do you think these two pictures make you think about? What do these pictures make you think about? Is the next stage of our presentation, of our webinar. Okay, collaboration. What else do you think? We're almost there. Thank you for staying with me. This brings me to the final part of my presentation, and I want to share some ideas. Collaboration and success. Empathy, absolutely. Empathy is so important. It's so important, especially nowadays in the crazy world that we live. Absolutely. Okay, so this is to share some ideas that I hope will be useful and that you will be able to take back into your classrooms. Okay, so I've tried to evoke that sense here. Now, my first tip or food for thought for you is don't use technology that you don't have a basic understanding of, because you're gonna be stressed. You're gonna look bad. The students are gonna be like, what's going on? And it is very unnecessary, right? So keep it simple. Keep it simple. If you're using Zoom or Google Teams or Adobe Connect or whatever big blue button, whatever platform you're using, learn it and learn it well. Exploit that first. Then bring in other things, simple things. Of course, if you are at that stage where you really into technology, you feel super confident, then do whatever you think is good for you, and to your level of confidence. But make sure that you don't use technology that you don't have a basic understanding of. That's what I do. If there's a new, there are thousands of apps every day. So if I see something, I go like, "Ooh, I could use that with my class." The first thing I do is go and and check it out. Practice with maybe some of my teachers and tell them, listen, I'm exploring this. Do you want to give it a go? So very important. The second one, very, very important. As you can see here, acknowledgement of the source. Now, just so that you know, the other pictures like this one, there's no acknowledgement because this picture comes from the noun project, and they have free services, so copyright free pictures. I strongly recommend it. If it is free, if you're a free member, then you need to at least say pick image via the noun project, and that's it. Recognize source. If you're a paid member, and I'm a paid member, it's super cheap, $19 a year. If you're a teacher, so if you're a teacher, you get a discount, and it's definitely worth it because I love always working with images and making students think about what the image means. In this case, the picture comes from somewhere else, so I'm recognizing their image by this person at Pixabay. Now, the next tip, treat the use of technology as you would planning any lesson. What I said at the beginning, forget about technology. Plan your lessons, that's more important. Have your learning outcomes clear, that's more important. Think about your students, that's more important, okay? Then you will see that if you want to use a tool, when you bring that tool to the lesson, it will be beneficial because you put your lesson, you put yourself, and you put your students first. The next tip, what do you think this picture makes you think of, is the next tip. Let's see if you get it. Results, okay, good. Svetlana, what else? What do you think that picture makes you think of? Teaching, okay. Success, very good. Knowledge will pay. Very good, Galina. Kirill, very good. Yes. Milena, wonderful. Todorka, yes. Evelina, wonderful. Yes, thank you so much. Always think of what the students get out of the lesson when you bring technology in. It's much better to have a normal lesson without so many bells and whistles and links and clicking and going to a different page and students not being able to see where they have to go, than to have a lesson where you have just what things that are simple for the students and that they can see the value in that lesson, that they can feel an active part of that lesson, that they can contribute to that lesson rather than just they're sitting there listening to you and blah, 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 blah. This is super important. Okay. Always ask yourself, how much am I saying? How much am I doing? How much are they doing? Now, this is the last. And my message to you today is keep it simple. Love yourself before you love your students. We cannot love other people, love our profession if we don't love ourselves. If you're feeling stressed, don't. Keep it simple. I'm going to keep doing what I do. And I'm going to try and keep doing it to the best of my abilities. I'm going to apply my lessons. I'm going to find out what this technology is about, this website that I'm using is about, and then I'm going to make sure that students and make sure that myself, that I'm having fun. Okay? So let's wrap up my session with again, and I'm sorry if I have asked you to write so many things in the chat box. What do you think those two pictures lead to right now? Oh, excellent. Very good. Metodi, very good. Yes, yes, yes. Ekaterina, Elena, Michaela, wonderful. Yes, yes, yes. Very good. So that means that I chose the right pictures, right? Okay, so some food for thought. Now, what are my learning outcomes for this lesson? Next time you sit down to plan your lessons, what are my learning outcomes for this lesson? How can I put my students at the center of all activity in my online lesson? How is this tool enhancing my lesson, supporting my learning outcomes? How is, for example, I'm using Zoom. So how can the different features of Zoom help me with this lesson? Okay, for this exercise, I can use the chat box. For this exercise, I can use the breakout rooms. For this exercise, I need them to be on speaker view so that they see me and not on gallery view, because I'm going to be small and they're not going to be able to benefit from my extra paralinguistic features. How is this tool enhancing my lesson and supporting my learning outcomes? How much have my students done outside the lesson in preparation for this lesson? How much are they doing individually, in pairs, in groups? How much interaction is there? Who will be using the tool, when, why, and can they actually use the tool? How can this tool foster learning? How can this tool bring in the 4 C's of education? Okay, so can you remind me of the 4 C's of education in the chat box? Mariana, you're asking how many hours continues your day? I'm teaching. I teach as a director. I work 7 hours a day, and then I have lessons twice a week now with the teenagers, and then I also have webinars, and I also outside those 7 hours, outside that's like an extra thing that I do, and I also do online work. So it's a pretty long day. Communication, collaboration, critical thinking. Thank you so much for the C's, the 4 C's. Absolutely. Communicate. Yes, absolutely. Very well done, everyone. Now, please try and throw into your lesson at least 2 of those C's. I try to remind myself to do that in my lesson. What are my 2 C's of the 4? If you can throw in the 4 C's in the lesson, that would be absolutely fantastic. I try to keep it realistic, and I try and think, okay, I need to include at least 2 C's in my lesson. What are those 2 C's going to be? And I tried, okay, and I try and say, okay, is it going to be communication and collaboration, or is it going to be creativity or critical thinking? I'll try and just throw those two of those there to make it achievable for yourself as well. Right, so we have almost finished. And now this is what I was telling you, I think it's super important, especially with our students nowadays. You probably know that they say we live in the copy and paste generation. They copy and paste everything and then just sell it, or maybe don't sell it. They're not aware of the fact that we need to pay recognize source and pay credit to people. So all images taken from the Noun project is a pro account or Pixabay following the recommended acknowledgement style. This style, I ask my students and my teachers to always do it, at least image by the author and the source. All the pictures that you saw with the timelines and the visuals were taken from the concept questions and timelines by Graham Workman, and all action visuals from 10 pictures of tenses by Mark Fletcher and Richard Munns. Okay, well, thank you so much. Thank you. Katie, at this stage, please remember that when the webinar finishes, you need to follow the link to a different page for feedback, and so that you can get the certificate, okay? Thank you so much for bearing with me. I know that webinars are a little bit, but thank you so much for your participation. I really enjoyed it, and I hope that I've managed to inspire some of you. And what I say at the end of all my lessons and webinars and workshops, love always and love without measure. Thank you so much. Katie, over to you.